It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Thursday, June 29th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have sermons in the sky, it's QNA Thursday, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone, how are you doing? Yes, it is Thursday. I am super happy. I love Thursdays. I hope you guys enjoyed your Wednesday service last night. I had a great time too. If you haven't yet, please leave a like and comment to build our community. Really happy for everyone joining us each and every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up and support each other. And you know, this is the thing, guys. You see how much of an impact we are making in the world right now around Providence. People are calling in. People are getting help. People are getting support. And I really hope that we can continue to build such a community so more and more people will feel comfortable. They'll feel the transparency. They'll feel the love, the support, the kindness that comes from all of us over here, all right? So thank you so much for getting up each and every day and supporting this podcast. All right, so it is Thursday, and yeah, I had a really interesting day yesterday. Very interesting. A lot of different things happened. I went to this cafe that I haven't gone to in a very long time. It got taken over by like this new ownership and stuff, but you know, the coffee's still very good, just a little bit further away from my house. And man, there's just some weird people out there. Just really weird people. Like, I got my coffee, I'm sitting down, I'm on my computer, I have my earphones on, right? So I have my earphones on, listening to something, and you know, of course, my earphones have noise canceling, so I can't really hear what's going on the outside, so I'm doing my work. And, you know, I'm just doing it, and I just, you know, with noise canceling, it doesn't cancel out everything, right? And I just hear this, like there's something, you know, I can hear someone talking, but I can hear the voice projecting towards me. And I was like, oh, what's that? And I look up and there's this old dude, right? Kind of, you know, very scruffy looking. He's not homeless, or I don't think he's homeless because he didn't smell or anything like that. And he's talking to me and I'm looking at him. I was like, huh? So then I turn off my noise canceling and I turn off the music I was listening to. And he looks at me and he says to me, thank you for giving me the silent treatment. And I was like, huh? And I was like, and I was so lost. And I was like, excuse me? He's like, thank you for giving me the silent treatment. And I was just like, in my head, I was like, you're crazy, dude. Get away from me. Like, that's what I was thinking in my head. But I became very Canadian at that time. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. Because, you know, we always say sorry. I was on my earphones. I couldn't hear you. And then he said it again. Yeah, thanks for giving me the silent treatment. I was like, what? And then he looks at me and says, yeah, and they're giving me the silent treatment too. And I was like, so weird, right? And he kept looking at me and talking to me. And I was just like, what the heck is going on? It was so odd for me. But from there, I was just sitting there like, man, there are people out there that have some, you know, there are people out there that have mental problems. Right? Like, it is really odd for me because I'm just like, whoa, this out of nowhere. He's talking to a stranger, and strangers give other people, they don't give people the silent treatment. It's because we don't know each other. We're not going to talk to each other kind of thing, right? But then I knew that he was really, you know, a little bit off because he was outside sitting at a table by himself talking to someone. So I was just like, whoa, okay, so I get it. And I was kind of like, when this guy started saying the exact same thing to the person at the bar, like the coffee bar, and they looked at me like we're looking at each other like, yo, this guy's weird kind of thing. That was a really weird thing for me to go. I was just like, what the heck is going on there? I don't know if you guys ever experienced that, right? It's like, I was just like, made no sense to me. Also, another interesting thing that I found yesterday, I was watching like a UFC fight on YouTube, and I'm watching it in my room, so I'm by myself, right? And then I was like, I go to the bathroom. So I walked to the bathroom, and I walked past my dad's door, and he's also on his computer, oddly watching UFC on his computer. And I was like, it's so odd for me. I'm just like, my dad is watching UFC. That's so weird, right? But then I thought to myself, as like, well, even though he's my dad and he's like 76, he's still a guy, right? Because guys are kind of more into those types of things. But it was just so odd for me that both of us were watching UFC at the exact same time. So, like, I don't know many girls that really are into watching sport. I know there are girls that watch sports. So I'm not saying that none of them watch sports, but generally speaking, girls don't like the violence. Like that's kind of my feeling is from when I've talked, they're just not interested in it. Where, yeah, I'll even name this one time I was at my cousin's house. We're watching a football game, right? And all the guys are talking about the players, their stats, what they did last game, how many yards that they ran. It was NFL football. And my cousin walks in, and the very first thing she looks at the TV and says, "Whoa, he's so cute." And we're looking at her like, huh? She's like, "Oh my gosh, he's so cute. Who is he?" Right? And then she's like, "Oh, but his uniform is ugly." And we were just kind of like staring at her, and all the guys were just kind of laughing because it's so off to what we're thinking. Like, we're all on stats. We're all thinking about how buff this guy is, but she walks in and is straight up, "He's cute. He's so cute. So cute." Kind of thing, right? But she's like, "Yeah, but the uniform is ugly." And we kind of look at it like, yeah, I guess, right? But like, you could just see a huge disparity in just a different interest. Like when they look at like psychologists, when they look at, remember, generalizations, obviously we're not talking person to person, just generally speaking, they say that guys are into things and girls are into people. Right? That's why they have different interests, right? That's why girls like dolls and stuff like that, where guys like trucks and guns and those types of toys, airplanes and helicopters and stuff. It's just we have a different, there are different things that we're interested in general. So please don't go into the comments like, "Yeah, but some girls like that." And the answer is, of course they do. I'm talking generally. Right? These are generalizations which are researched and true. All right? So please don't get all up in bunches and just come to me and just say, "No, that's not true." But the answer is, it is true. Psychology has proved it, that generally speaking, which means the majority of guys are into things and girls are into people, right? They'll like to talk to people, be with people and stuff like that too. Either way. Chris Jansen, the guy who does Provicon, he sent me an interesting IG story. It was very, very interesting because it's a Christian person on IG, and this is what he wrote. Okay, and I want you guys to think about what this person just wrote. He said, Jesus didn't eat with tax collectors and sinners because he wanted to appear inclusive, tolerant, and accepting. He ate with them to call them to a changed and fruitful life, to die to self and live for him. His call is transformation of life, not affirmation of identity. So you kind of get to see where this is going. So he just asked me like, "Hey, what do you think about this comment?" Right? So I want you guys to think about that too. Right? This person said Jesus didn't sit down with the sinners and tax collectors because he wanted to be inclusive, tolerant, accepting. He wanted them to change, right? And he wanted them he ate with them to call them to a change and fruitful life. And his call is transformation of life, not affirmation of identity, right? So it looks like a very, very good message. I'm not sure what you guys are thinking about this too. And it does seem like kind of a reaction to how someone of faith, people will defend their faith from this time of wokeness kind of thing. And he asked me what I thought, and I think both of us agreed on this, but I didn't really fully agree with it, like fully. Like, I understand where he's coming from, right? Like, we don't want to be those that just because the whole world is accepting like all these other different types of things, like sinful lifestyles and such, that we should just accept them. And I understand that point, and that message is something that I agree with. But I didn't really agree with it fully because it comes down to one of the original things that I said of why Jesus did the things that he did, right? So I think ultimately it comes down to, regardless of whether these people change or not. Yes, and he comes to call, he wants them to change and he wants them all to come to eternal life. That's what Jesus wants, obviously. He wants to save them. However, I think his purpose of meeting and being with sinners and tax collectors, and technically speaking, everyone's a sinner. right? That's all, for all have sinned and fall short for the glory of God, right? It's kind of like everyone is considered a sinner. So why, he does come to save the world, but how does he come to save the world? He comes to save it through love. And one point that I do make is that his purpose to go to sinners, like his sole reason to go to them is not just to change them, right? Because, if his whole point was to change them, then Jesus should have been a girl, since girls see others and try to change them. Sorry, that's a bad joke. I couldn't even keep it straight. I couldn't even go through that. Sorry. So, if the whole, I can't believe I'm going on with that, right? But I think the original purpose why Jesus would come to these people, because he genuinely loved them. And regardless if they change or not, he would still love them. Regardless if they change or not, he would still eat with them, right? And it kind of goes back to the things that I originally talked about when it comes to evangelism too. If you go with the purpose of go to meet people just for the purpose of evangelism, you start this really toxic cycle of evangelism, right? Because the moment they don't want to change, the moment they don't want to listen to the word, we drop them, we move on to someone else, where it should be about, regardless if they change or not, we got to love these people, right? It's not like we start dropping it and throwing people away. Like, of course, it's going to be different if they're like mistreating you and, they're not even giving you respect. That might be a little bit different, but ultimately in the end, God has called us to love people, regardless if they believe in God or not, right? And we know that if we live this type of life of loving all our brothers and sisters, until the end, we've lived the life of God that God truly wanted from us, regardless if they are saved or not, right? Because this week's message is about having God's thoughts, to think differently, and it makes me think about the scripture of the shepherd leaves the 99 for that one sheep that's lost, right? However, like Sunstein pointed out, is like, but we would just go home and feel good. Oh, guess what? We only lost one, kind of thing, right? And I think our thoughts need to change a little bit. And obviously that IG post is a little bit political. Well, not a little bit. It is political. But it's because it's a political climate. And there's a lot of wokeness and stuff that's going on, which makes people defend themselves, right? So I do understand. Like, that's why I say I agree and disagree. I understand where it's coming from, but I don't think it's going to be like that's the message that Jesus is trying to give. Like, our message is we got to love everyone. We just got to love everyone. And if we love everyone, then we have lived the life that God has wanted, no matter how difficult it is. Like, think about it. If it was just love the people that love you, then Jesus would never say, love your enemies, right? If you love only the people that love you, what righteousness is that, right? And and I think it's something that we have to look at ourselves even more, especially when the message is coming out and saying stuff like, we're having a hard time fighting against the world, but here you are still fighting amongst each other inside Providence, right? And that is something that's a really, really big problem. Like, even a lot of my friends and people that I know really well in Korea, like, there's going to be factioning in Korea because of all the chaos that's happening, right? And at one point, I do understand why it's happening, but I would have to say that it's not acceptable, right, for us to be fighting like that. Like, I understand we all going to have fights. We make up and we move on, right? But if it's these fights that people are, like, factioning, I think that's going to be a massive problem that we can't have happening in our churches too. Like I said before, guys, even when I was head leader, one thing I realized is not everyone has to be best friends. Just got to respect each other, right? That's part of love, is just respect each other. Yeah, they might, your characters might not match. And guess what? It's okay if your characters don't match. You don't have to hang out with each other every day. You don't have to call each other every day. Yeah, we're all different and it's fine. It's fine, right? It's just that we shouldn't get ourselves into, I hate you. Oh, I hate this person so much. Like, I have seen some, I see that as one of the ways that Satan comes in and splits you apart. Yeah, if you start to really, really hate your brothers and sisters that are in this history. And it's something that we have to think about even more, right? So for me, it was quite interesting, right? So quite a good question. which also leads to another interesting thing that happened yesterday. I had a very, very interesting day. Okay, so, and remember, guys, our days are just crazy long right now because sun is up at 5:30 a.m. and it goes down at 9:30 p.m. So for me, it's even hard to sleep early because the light is out at like 10:15. I'm just like, what? It feels like it's still the day. Like you want some of that darkness to come in so that your brain can settle and your melatonin can come out so that you can, getting some good rest. Like I try to sleep at around 11. Oh, and I'm just awake in bed till like 12:30ish. But I think it's because the sunlight is just so long. Either way, yesterday, if those of you guys saw my IG, I bought a pressure washer for my parents. And you know what I'm going to tell you guys? Pressure washers are amazing, and they're so cheap. Like the one I bought from Costco, it was on sale. Those of you guys in America, you guys should, I recommend this one. It's only like $99. And it's such an amazing machine. Either way. So I bought it for them. I kept it in the garage for like 2 days, and I was just finally like, you know what? Let me just assemble it. So yesterday, I assembled it. I went on YouTube, and I followed instructions, and I assembled it. And then after I assembled it, my parents are like, all right, go wash the house. So after I bought it and assembled it for them, they're like, okay, go clean the house now. And I'm glad I did because pressure washers are wildly therapeutic. Like wildly. And I'm like, it's so interesting just to use this pressure washer. And, we have like, the sides of the house have dirt and like some like growth of some grass or, moss on it and stuff. And just taking it off is one of the most therapeutic feelings, just to see it come clean. I'm just like, whoa, this is so cool. And yeah, it was just satisfying. It's so satisfying just to clean dirt off the walls. And I was just like, whoa, this is kind of cool. And it felt very therapeutic, very satisfying to see the result. And after about an hour, because my arm is like sore from pulling the trigger, and I'm cleaning high places and stuff like that too. So after about an hour, it became a little bit more difficult, because my arms were tired. But I got the large side of the house done, but it was really nice. Yeah. And it's interesting because while you're doing it, you're thinking of strategies or better ways to clean, right? What's the better strategy? Should I do one panel at a time? Should I do a certain section at a time? And, you really start to think about God for some reason. Can't help it. Just start thinking about repentance. Start thinking about cleaning away sins. And then you think about, wow, just as it's satisfying to do this, how satisfying it is to clean ourselves of our sins. And it was really interesting because I'm doing it. I'm thinking about repentance. I'm thinking about, oh man, no matter how hard this gets, I got to do it until the end. Right? And no matter, it was just these thoughts come to mind. It was just very therapeutic. And one realization I had was just thinking like, it's just water. That's all it is. It's just water. And the difference is how much pressure, you have the water coming out at, right? And the higher the pressure, the more it cleans away, right? But it's just water. So if you just had regular water and you have a hose and you spray it against the side of the wall, it wouldn't do any difference, right? You wouldn't clean it like this pressure washer. And I realized that, repentance is not just about a regular prayer, right? It's just like, oh God, thank you so much. Oh, please forgive me my sins. I realized that for sins, and especially if you have deep sins, it requires more pressure. Or in other words, we would say more sincerity. It would require pleading. It requires us to put more pressure into that prayer. And I think in order for us to get to that point, it requires us to think more deeply and apply the pressure in our hearts to see what we've done and to really, really be sorry to God. And and take that prayer of pleading and sincerity to another level, to a higher pressure. And this is when we are like really, really clean from it. So I had that realization while I was doing it, and I was really thankful that I was able to do it. Like, I still have to get a ladder to do like the higher parts of the house, but I was super grateful and thankful that I was able to do that. So yeah, I just had a really good time. I recommend, I'm going to be washing my car the next day too. Not today, I think tomorrow, right? When I'm done all my podcasts. But yeah, I was really, really thankful to get that pressure washer and just to see it in action. Yeah. By the way, getting some really good responses from yesterday's talk I had about leadership and how to break the cycle and how to, to get more leaders involved. And I think it is, it's super important. It's really, really important for us to find a way for the future to break that cycle. And I don't think it's something that can be fixed right away. I don't think it's something where we're going to look at and say to ourselves like, too bad. Like people shouldn't be complaining like, well, I heard on Pastor Sky's, podcast that, it's like this. And I noticed it is like this. What can we do? Do something about it. I don't think it's that easy. It's something that needs to be like thoroughly discussed, thoroughly researched. And I think that's one of the biggest ones because a lot of us aren't professionals that are building up organizations. We don't know the proper organization or system to get things to be proper as it was before. But I am most thankful that a lot of people are texting me and stuff saying, I like this podcast because it talks about the things we normally can't talk about in church or with each other, right? And I think that is something that's a very, very important part of this podcast is discussing the difficult topics. Like that's really, really important. There are difficult topics out there and we've got to discuss them. We really, really do, right? And some more questions popped up and I'll bring that up in the QNA Thursday also. So yeah, it was just I'm very, very grateful and thankful for all of you out there for listening and just commenting and encouraging me also and also giving me feedback. I think feedback is very important too. And I hope that all of us will be able to continue together to make this better and better each and every week. Either way. All right. So before we get to the first break, let me have the coffee tip of the day. All right. For those of you guys out there that are using, that like to put milk in your coffee or like to get a latte, like a latte type drink. One of the tips I'm going to give you is use whole milk. I know you're like, oh my gosh, it's too fattening, but you're not drinking unless you're drinking like what? 4 or 5 lattes a day, it's not going to make a big difference. Use whole milk. You're not even drinking that much. Usually it's anywhere from 6 to 7 ounces. But let me tell you the reason why you want full fat milk. Okay? So full fat milk, one of the great things about it, it has the ideal fat content, which is around 4%, which combines with your coffee and actually reduces the coffee's bitterness, right? So that's why whole milk is the best. Right? You try other ones, it's not as good. Whole milk, full fat milk, that is the best one for taste, and it's the perfect ideal content of fat to reduce the coffee's bitterness. Okay? Now you might think to yourself if there's more fat, then it will reduce it even more. And the answer is no. So don't use creamers and stuff like that are even higher levels of fat. Because what happens with higher levels of fat, it actually coats your tongue's taste buds, and it results in you not being able to taste the coffee's flavors, right? So don't go, whole milk, full fat milk is the right ideal content for your lattes, right? And to reduce the bitterness of your coffee taste. So I am telling you guys right now, it's better to do it this way. And if you just put milk into your coffee, yeah, I understand that. But if you're going to steam your milk, those of you guys out there don't know how to steam milk, you can actually buy like Nescafe has like a milk steamer. You do nothing. You pour it in, you put it down, and it works automatically. It's not the best steaming, but it's still steam with lots of foam. Go ahead and use that. And one thing about full fat milk and what you do is it actually makes your coffee sweeter. It sweetens your milk when you have like frothed milk, steamed milk in there. It actually makes your coffee sweeter. You don't even need sugar because that's what the milk does. Either way. So that's my coffee tip for the day. Use whole milk or full fat milk, which is about 4%, and that is the most ideal content of fat for your coffees, preferably lattes or what other drinks that you use for your what other types of drinks you use with milk or steamed milk. All right. So there it is, guys. That is, let's get into the first break for the day.
want is for your will be done. So I'm on my knees, praying for you to always come through. No, I'm not slipping through. No, I'm not falling down. The only thing that's falling's my knees on the floor. I'm praying, Lord, will you give me strength? Lord, will you give me power? I can't do this myself, so bless me in the morning hours. All the demons test me, but they will never shake me. If I pray, they hit me. If I pray, you love me. Connected with you's the only thing that matters. And honestly, I couldn't be happier. While I'm praying on my knees, I trust you with all my heart. For you always come through. For myself, for my family, for myself alone I pray. Please don't let me down, Lord. I know I can trust you with all my heart. So I'm on my knees, praying for you to always come through. Even if I pray all night, all I want is for your will be done. So I'm on my knees, praying for you to always come through. I pray to never just settle for good when great is available. Who's the mastermind behind this mind? I give all the credit to God, that's why I'm back. They mad that I made it, I know that the Satans, they hate it. I keep working hard just to make progress. Now I'm on 10, trust the process, ayy. Look at my efforts lately, I'm setting conditions daily. I'm praying on my knees, so bless me. Please bless me, please bless me. Tribulations always come and go, I will never stop, just always know. Your focus determines reality, stay solid, that's why I'm praying on my knees. I trust you with all my heart. For you to always come through. For myself, for my family, on myself alone I pray. Please don't let me down, Lord. I know I can trust you with all my heart. So I'm on my knees, praying for you to always come through. Even if I pray all night, all I want is for your will be done. So I'm on my knees, praying for you to always come through. SB.
All right, so let's get into today's Q&A Thursday. We have 2 questions for the day, and yeah, let's go right into it. So the first question is, 2023 is ending. Well, we still have half the year left, and it's really important to realize deeper. I'm struggling with priorities, and I realize that my self-realization about the 30 lessons, about the Lord, the bridegroom, is not as deep, but as this year is a pair with 1978, evangelism is also important. So if I keep connecting newcomers, most of my time will be evangelism and managing. I don't think I can focus well on studying the words more deeply. And I would actually prefer to be more firm on knowing God deeper at the moment, or try to read more books and stories about something to know Him better and be closer. But I am anxious at the same time because I know God has prepared a lot of lives for us to connect and help, which will be time consuming. We are going to hold evangelism events in church, which I'm afraid to miss the timing and chance not to evangelize too, since the events are prepared. Can I get some advice on this? All right. So here is the big question here is realizing deeply about 2023, right? So it's the dilemma or the conundrum is between realizing the word more deeply, and secondly is also evangelism, because evangelism takes a lot of time out, right? You have to evangelize, plus you have to take care of these new lives and stuff like that too. And they're going to, what is going to be more of a priority over the other, all right? So what kind of advice could I give in this type of situation? The first question has to do with realizing more deeply, right, about the word, about whether it's 30 lessons, whether it's about the man of mission, the bridegroom. It's not as deep. So how do I realize more deeply about that? So let's start off with that question, is how to realize more deeply. And realizing deeply about the word requires us to basically have, it's like this week's message says, it is about how focused are you? Because something in the past said that if you focus so deeply while listening to the word, you only have to listen to it once and you get what you need, right? Get that one thing from the word that God is speaking to you about. Just got to have that absolute focus that changes your IQ to 200 or 2 million, whatever it is, right? So in order for us to realize more deeply, you don't really need to be focused on the 30 lessons. When it comes to the 30 lessons is for you to realize about this time period and realize the man of mission. That's the big thing for that. Like, you go through it, you're not going to remember all of it, but you'll have a general idea, the basic concepts and stuff like that too. The big thing that people have to understand is it's about the weekly message. That's the thing. That's the big one out of all. Once you finish the 30 lessons, if you're going to start teaching it, it's great. Reviewing it is great. Understanding the core principles behind the 30 lessons is great. That's all good to know and to have in your mind because it helps you, right? But ultimately, the rest of our lives is not 30 lessons. The rest of our lives is the weekly message, the Sunday message, the pre-dawn messages, the Wednesday messages, like those types of words, right? And here's the thing. If the 30 lessons were the most important part or the thing that would help you to realize even more deeply, which I do think it does help, if that was the case, then we'd be reviewing the 30 lessons constantly. But of the 9 services during the week, 6 at the pre-dawn, Sunday message, Wednesday message, Friday prayer meetings and such, what's it focused on? It's always focused on the weekly message. And the problem that's happening is a lot of people are not so focused on the weekly ones, right? And that's the one that we have to start thinking about at a much higher level. Being very focused. What is God saying to me right now? Because that's the big thing about the weekly message. It's the one thing that every person, like when I was, when you're in the former faith, the one thing people want more than anything else is, what is God saying to me right now? What's he saying to me right now at this moment? And that's what we get from the weekly messages. This is what God wants this week. That's how current the word is. It's for this entire week. And the focus and the studying should be more on the weekly message. And that's why 9 services a week are solely fixed on this week's message. Be focused, learn it, study it, right? And since we're already realizing and studying it 9 times a week, I believe in my heart that 9 times is a lot because it's more than once a day. It is a lot. And if we exclude Sunday, that's still 8 times in 6 days, right? Which is, that's like 1.15 or whatever. I don't know how many times we're listening to it in a single week. So the focus, I do think to realize deeply, number one is we have enough listening, which means the thing that we're going to struggle with, why we don't realize the words as deep, is when we don't put the words into action. Right? So it's kind of like I talked about this just last week or this week. Did I talk about this week? About my crypto hacking, right? And when my crypto wallet got hacked, I lost all my money. My dad's like, life is the best teacher. Your experience is the best teacher. And it's true because you actually went through it. You feel it. I went through it. Like, oh my gosh, they took my money. Oh, I thought all these people were just trying to help me, but there's some bad people out there. And you realize even more, not everyone, you can't trust everyone, right? So when I'm going through it, what I actually go through helps a lot more than just, what I go through is helping way more than just listening to it. People saying, oh, don't do this. But, sometimes you do it, right? And in the same way too, one of the things that's great about having these newcomer events and such is that is the time you are able to consciously put the words of God into action. Consciously. Which means you heard the word and there's something I got to do this better. I got to do this better. And then when you're with newcomers, when you're going to evangelize, trying to control your heart, trying to control your mindset, trying to control yourself in those difficult situations, you're able to, okay, I got it. This makes more sense, right? And as you do it, you begin to realize more deeply about the word. You realize more deeply about Sunstein because he's teaching us and he's going through it himself, right? And I think you will realize as you go step by step. Realization is not something that's forced. Realize is something that it kind of blooms like a flower and it takes some time. And I think my big suggestion would be is plan it for the next 6 months, not for the next 2 months. Because evangelism events don't go on for 6 months. Evangelism events go on for usually a month or two, and then you need to start taking care of the newcomers, right? And start taking care of that way. If you're learning 30, if you got newcomers coming anyways, you're going to learn the 30 lessons again because you're going to listen to the word while you're sitting in with your newcomer. But don't sit in with your newcomer thinking that you're going to listen to the word because your newcomer's listening. You're listening to the word because you want to listen to it too. You want to realize more deeply. So you're going to get more chances to listen to the 30 lessons anyways. But my big thing is, one thing that Sunseem did say was, he said that it's not about, people say that they don't have enough time to evangelize, do this, study the word, whatever it is, right? But Sunseem said it's not about time. It's about interest, right? It's about interest. I talked about this before, maybe a month ago, but Sunseem was basically saying that, hey, if you have no time and then someone asks you to do something you're not interested in, you're just going to tell them, sorry, I'm busy, right? However, if you have the girl that you have a super crush on, or a guy you've had a crush on all your life, and then they say, hey, you have time tomorrow, even if you're busy, because you're interested in that guy or girl, you're going to move stuff around so you can meet that person, right? In the end, it's about interest. It's not about, do I have enough time? If you are super interested in studying the words a little bit more deeply, look at your life. Look at the things you waste your time on. There's some things you just waste your time on. There is, right? And there are some things that you can use time more wisely. For instance, I can listen to the Wednesday message again while I'm at the gym on the bike, and I have it in my earphones and I'm playing it, right? Yeah. I can listen to the Sunday message again, right? So listen to the words again while I'm working out. Like, that's one way to use my time even better. Another one is, I spend a little bit too much time on social media or this, or I watch a video here or there just to kill my time, right? But how much interest do I have in the word will tell me, like, you know what? I'm going to just spend 20 minutes a day. Because I can get 20 minutes a day. I can find 20 minutes a day, right, to study the word a little bit more, like focusing on one question or one lesson or something along that line. And you spending the next 6 months, 20 minutes a day, is going to be far better than you kind of just like, okay, I don't want to evangelize anymore. I need all this time to study the word more deeply. And one thing I'm going to tell you right now is, no one is at the point where we've realized 2023 deeply. Like that, we're still waiting for things to develop. And that's why we're not going to really understand it until it actually finishes. And that's why you're not going to really get much out of it if you just sit there studying the word, right? So my thing is, it's living the balanced life. Live the balanced life. When the evangelism events come out, go evangelize. Go bring the people. Go sit on them with the 30 lessons. Listen to it again. Like, oh, this is what to say. Oh, I would totally use. Oh, I get this point a lot better now, right? And on top of that, spend your time, take your time out and say, you know what? I'm going to schedule this time for 20 minutes a day studying the word, 30 minutes a day studying the word. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's only so long you can study the word before your mind goes off into another place or you get just exhausted from it. But if you do something very, very simple like 20 minutes and say, 20 minutes, when am I going to do this 20 minutes? Every day after pre-dawn. 20 minutes, I'm focusing on one part. And if I were to give you an extra advice when it comes to 30 lessons, if you don't know the lessons really well, or you only know it to your level, if you keep studying it at your level, it's going to take forever for you to realize and get to the next level, which means it's far better for you to teach it, or far better you to sit down with someone who knows the word even better and sit down for 30 minutes, ask just one question to get a little bit more insight. Right? So you don't need to go like full on 3 hours a day. I don't think most people could last. They'll probably burn out from it anyways. It's better to be balanced each and every day. When the evangelism events come up, then, priorities switch a little bit. So you'll spend more time on evangelism and spend less time on the word. And then once those events finish, you're going to have a little bit more time to spend on the word too. Right? So that's kind of my thoughts and my advice on this situation. Okay? Let's move into the last question for today. And this has to do, this came from a question where I talked about yesterday about, the leadership cycle and how we can, how we can have more hope in our history and such. And a very, very interesting question someone came up to me now is, why do you think so many good leaders have left? right? So, let's just take a look at all your countries right now. And there are some really good leaders that might have left. And people might say, oh, they didn't realize the word well. Oh, they didn't realize this or that. And these are kind of the things that people do say. However, I don't fully agree. I agree, but I don't fully agree with it, right? So it's true. When you look at some of the countries that you've worked, I can only talk about my experiences too in the countries that I've worked in, which, well, pretty much is like the whole world. But there's a lot of good leaders that were there, and a lot of them left. And I'm not saying that left meaning left Providence, but they don't want to lead anymore. Like, I look at myself, I don't want to be in that position anymore, right? And it's like, why? What is the reason why? Man, so many good leaders have left. And I'm going to talk only from my experience, right? From my experience, why I would have a hard time getting back into it. And there's going to be, and I'm going to say it's multifaceted. There's so many different reasons, but I would have to say is it comes down to the things I talked about yesterday, but I would have to say the organizational system we have is we're still young as a history. A lot of our countries are still young as a Providence history, that we don't actually have the full, we don't really have the full system down. If I was going to use the right word, the word would be, it's not professional yet to that point, because we're still young in most of the smaller countries. Like, if I were to look at the things that I saw when I was leading, and this is no knock on people, it's just we just not at that level yet, right? So when I look at the organizational system, one thing I found very difficult that made it really hard for me was the level of support. Support meaning not financial. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Support meaning when I struggled, I was always alone. Right? And it was like, what do you mean you're always alone? Well, there'll be complaints coming from the bottom, right? Like from the people. And they have every right to complain. It's not like we can say oh, you can't complain. No, they have every right to complain, right? But these complaints or these issues start popping up from the bottom. And then I have someone above me, which would be like HQ, but there was no support from that side. Instead, they were saying, oh, these people are saying this about you, and they're basically just echoing what was happening from the bottom, which means I'm in a sandwich by myself. And I never really had like a support system, right? And I didn't have anyone to really sit down and talk to. It was just kind of like I was alone. So that's like one example of a support system I think is necessary. It's not so, I just felt like everyone, when it came down to problems happening, it would all come to me. HQ would come to me, and then the bottom people would come to me, and I was just squished, right? So who would I go to for support? So that's just one example. And, you don't want to be in that situation where you don't feel supported. Like there's no one on your side. Not saying that they're saying that everyone else is wrong, but they get your side. They get your situation better than everyone else. And like, yeah, I've been there before. Let's work on this. Let's try to find a way to get through this. But there was nothing like that, right? So there's like, that's like an organizational system thing, right? On top of it, financially too, I thought it was, I'm going to be honest too, financially I thought it was very, very difficult. Why? Because when I was head leading, your job is not 5 days a week for 8 hours. It's not 40 hours a week. It's way different than that. Like you're working even more on the weekends, right? And there's always there's a lot of stuff that you're doing. And then there's a lot of downtime too, but you're kind of always on call. And financially, like I'll tell you guys, yeah, like you'll make, as a head leader, I was making less. I was making about half of what someone makes full-time at McDonald's, which I don't think makes very much sense, right? But I also know that it also depends on the finance of your churches, right? Like that's an honest, way to look at it. It's like, yeah, finance would be nicer if it's better, but still, if your church is really small, you can't afford, to pay a pastor like that, right? Like even what is minimum wage at McDonald's, right? So it's kind of like finance. The way you have to look at it, the way I see it is not about I want more money. It's about, are you getting paid for what you're worth? And it's a sign of respect, right? So if everyone says, oh, the head leaders are so important, this, and this, but then you pay them pennies, then it's like it doesn't match. But I also understand that there is a finance in the church, which makes sense, right? Like, there's finances where sometimes you can't afford it, and that makes sense. So for me, it was a good and bad meeting. Yeah, I understand, right? I know the situation of the finances in the church. I understand that too, right? So that was something that I was like, yeah, that makes sense. So I'm not like sitting there like, oh my gosh, it was so terrible. No, I'm not saying that at all, right? But it's something that would be, I think would be a lot different if people were respected and shown through their finance. It would change the way people would look at going into leadership, right? Like those are just two different examples, right? And how the system works, or maybe the culture that was built in your country may not be suitable for that country. Like a top down, listen to what I say, you have to listen to me because I'm the leader. Like that's something that's not a very, very good system, right? And it's just the whole organizational system altogether. Dealing with these issues, I don't think there's like a huge fault on each person, like an individual. It's just that we don't know any better because none of us went to school or learned these types of things when it comes to organization, making organization structures and stuff like that too. And we can only do as much as we know, right? However, everyone, as a human being, everyone has their limitations, and the limitations will kind of bring you to a point where you're like, I'm burned out. I don't want to ever do this again. And some people may have some type of trauma from it where they're like, you want to try it again? You'd be like, no way. There's no way I'm going back into that. For me, in my position right now, I look back and I see all the things that I could have done better. Like for instance, when it comes to a good system, I should have been trained to become a head leader to know exactly what I was getting into. I should have known, right? I should have been trained. There should have been some system to bring me into that, but there wasn't. So not only is the system not helping, but I'm not helping myself because I'm not doing that well either, right? I'm not that great. I'm making a lot of mistakes. So on top of it, it's just kind of perpetual, and it kind of makes it harder and harder. And when you put all those things together, you're going to see a lot of leaders that just burned out. They'll just burn out from it. It's just too much, right? And when you have people who could have been very, very good, but it was just raw. It's so raw, meaning it's like a huge rock that could be a diamond, but it's uncut, so it's still not valuable kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's not as valuable yet. And I do think it's something that, yeah, that's probably a reason, is probably people went through some type of trauma. People went through some type of thing. You're like, whoa, like they are so angry from it that to some, it even made them leave. And to others, it just made them never want to go into leadership again, right? And my point here is not to say that, oh, this is what's going on, this is so terrible. That's not my point. My point is that when we reach a certain, like you reach the threshold of like the boiling point, you're at the threshold, everything's going to burst and explode, or we need to change, right? However, changing is not easy either. Yeah. Many good leaders, yeah, even in my lifetime, many good leaders are no longer leading anymore, and they would refuse to lead again. It's just not, it's not easy, right? In the way that our system is right now. And I would say like the big word that I would use is, because we're still young and immature in that area of this organizational system, I would just say it's not professional. Like it would never be dealt in this way. Do you know what I mean? Like the way that, let me give you one more example. What's not professional is, like, say that you have, you'll have like feedback and people are having like surveys for the head leaders or whatever, or whatever mission you're in. This is after head leading. Like I would get, one time I would get out of nowhere, the people in charge would say, we're going to do a survey on you tomorrow. And I'm just like, what? Like, it's so unprofessional, right? Because, like, think about this. if I get this feedback and the feedback is really bad, then I could be out of a job in 3 days. In 3 days. Do you know what I mean? Like, that is crazy uncertainty. What's professional is, hey, here's a contract for this year. You have a contract for 3 years. And guess what? You're going to get feedback every July 1st and January 11th. Those will be your 2 days, and that's going to be normal. And you just need to know is these feedbacks is not whether you get fired or not. These feedbacks are what are the things we can improve and we'll work on it for the next 6 months. That would be professional to me, right? Everyone knows they got a job for 3 years, right? That's a 1-year contract, knowing that, okay, I'm done, I'm good for this year kind of thing. That's very, very professional, right? Unprofessional is like, oh, we're going to do a survey. Okay, and if you don't do one on the survey, you're out of a job. For me, I think that's very unprofessional. Yeah, because it's so much, like, why would you want to go into a job like that? For me, I wouldn't. Yeah, I totally, like, I understand that you'll be fired if you do something crazy, like, like there's some things that if you beat someone up or if you commit the fall or, something like that, we all understand that, yeah, in any job, if that happened where you beat someone up, physically go to jail, whatever it is, you're going to lose your job. Like that is understandable. But when it's just basic stuff that we're going through, yeah, for me, I don't see it very professional yet. Meaning, we just got to work on this together. And once we do this, this is when a lot of things will start to change and more people will be wanting to become leaders. I just watched this video. Someone sent it from me from Malaysia, but it's a day in the life of a seminarian in Singapore for the Roman Catholic Church. It's amazing. Like what they go through, what they're training for, what they're learning for them to become priests. And I looked at that and said, that's professional. That is absolutely professional. Like the way that their schooling works, the time they have for prayer, the time they have to study, the time they have for eating, the time they have for exercise, all these things, it's all set. It's all there, right? And they are being trained in their craft. Like they're even learning how to sing. Why? Because in the Roman Catholic Church, some of the prayers and such are sung, right? They're sung. They're not prayed like what we do. And they're learning how to sing because it's part of their job scope, right? So I do think that eventually it's going to get to a point where we're going to have to change the system and make it into a better thing. I'm not here to gripe on any country or any system. It's more of this is the experiences and these are the things that we do need to change for the future. I don't have full answers for anything, but I do think we have to make it way more professional. And when it becomes more professional, more people will feel certainty from it and they'll want to get into it. But as long as it's just too carefree, this is when there's a lot of issues and problems that happen. So that's kind of some of my thoughts for that. Either way. All right. So there it is, guys. That is the Q&A Thursday for today. Hope you guys really enjoyed that. If you have any more questions, go ahead, leave in the comments below. We'd love to hear it. All right. So let's get into the second break for the day. All right, so let's get into today's last segment. And every single Thursday, I do have an opportunity to preach, and it allows me to keep my skills honed in. So whenever the opportunity comes, I'll be not too rusty. So let's get into today's sermons in the sky. So I was reading this verse, James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4, and it really resonated with me about the time we're living in. And it says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." And we look at it this time right now, and we see we are going through many trials. We're facing like the craziest trials at this moment. And one thing that God is telling us is, yeah, we're going through a time. These trials, these tribulations, it is the testing of our faith. Not saying God is giving it to us to test us, but as we go through these trials, our faith gets tested, and when we push through, continuously it produces that perseverance. And that perseverance, when it's finished its course, that we will become even more mature and more complete, not lacking anything. And when we look at our faith, faith is what? We all know that the Bible says, and I talked about this many times, is faith is the confidence in what we hope for and an assurance about what we do not see. By faith, Abraham believed in God and he had a child at 100. By faith, Joseph went to prison thinking, God, you have a better and bigger plan for me because I know I'm innocent. And we have to look at what hope do we have at this time. Faith is confidence in what we hope for. What is the hope? The hope that we have, the faith that we have right now in this history and the man of mission is not a hope of, oh, I just hope he's innocent. That's not a hope. Oh, I just hope he wins the trial. That's not a hope. If that was our hope, that he wins the trial, then we would have a very difficult time at the time of Jesus, because he didn't win his trial and he did die on the cross, which was the worst punishment for anyone at that time, reserved only for the worst of the worst. What is the hope we have? The hope is, no matter what the outcome is, that things are done according to God's will. That we trust and we believe in the person that God sent. And we have that absolute confidence. We know who he is. So what does that lead to? What does that mean? Well, as James chapter 2, as I just read, says, that going through these trials, is James chapter 1, is that when we go through these trials, it's testing our faith to produce perseverance, because we know what is true. We believe, we have faith in it. And we need to let the perseverance finish its work for the rest of the year. But if you move to James chapter 2, it talks about your faith is, what good is your faith, but you have no actions to back it up. We can't say that we have faith and we believe and we know he's innocent, or we know this or that, whatever faith that you have, but yet you are paralyzed and do nothing about your faith, and you just sit and wait. What is this faith that we have? We have a faith that's even greater than all these systems and what the entire world gives. We have faith in this history. We have faith in God. We have faith in the one that God has sent. We can't say we have faith and then do nothing. Oh, no, I believe. Oh, yeah, I still have faith. but I'm just going to sit back. I'm going to sit down and do nothing. James chapter 2, verse 14 through 17. What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save them? Suppose a brother or a sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, go in peace, keep warm and well fed, but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is it? In the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. We are going through a trial of faith at this moment. And we say we believe, and we say we understand exactly what's going on. But if you have that faith, what is your faith without doing anything about it? And I know it's a difficult time. We are going through the trial of faith, and we're persevering. We're trying our best. But don't try to find reasons why things are okay or why something can be okay. Oh, Sunseam did this, and I'm okay with it. Because look at David. Look what David did. David made a mistake. Solomon made a mistake. Moses made a mistake. Jacob made a mistake. Joseph, they made mistakes. So central figures can make mistakes. Do not entertain those thoughts. It means you haven't fully understood the words we've heard to this point, that our faith was not made solid. Because central figures have many levels. Many levels. Could you use that same reasoning for Jesus and say, oh, well, David did this, so Jesus might have done it, but I'm okay with it? No one would entertain that thought. Remember, when we learned the word, there's a lesson on central figures, and there are 4 levels of central figures. They're levels. They're not the same. At the 4th level, we have judges or priests. And then at the 3rd level, we have prophets. 2nd level, we have apostles. And then at the 1st level, we have the Messiah. Could you compare a king like David to Jesus? You couldn't. Which shows what? What's my point? My point is, central figures have different levels. If they were all the same, then you could compare David to Jesus, but David wouldn't allow it. David wouldn't say, oh, you can't compare me to Jesus. He wouldn't allow it. Don't compare me to Jesus. How could you say that? Just because one of the central figures at a lower level does it, it doesn't mean that it's the same as someone at the higher level. And not only are there different levels of central figures, there's different levels of time periods. You know, in the message this week too, it's very, very clear. When Sunseam was explaining about the 2 drachma tax parable, Jesus already knew the answer. He already knew that he should be exempt. But Peter had the wrong thoughts. Go fish. But we know that the fish is talking about people. But why did Jesus say this? And this is very important, that comes from the message. Jesus said it this way. Jesus gave the parable, go fish, so only the disciples could understand. Why? Because the others would misunderstand and say ignorant things. Only those that know are allowed to know. You know what the message said this week? The ignorant are told whatever they want and they move on. Have you ever thought about, Sunseam talking about his mission this year? Hey, wait, what happened? Why did he say this? Oh, he's not, what? The ignorant are told whatever they want and move on. Because they'll just misunderstand. What we need to understand is, how much do we realize from our faith? How much do we realize of what this history actually is? Do not entertain evil thoughts. Don't give yourself an out. Don't look at, and say, oh, well, maybe it's okay because, this is like this in the past. No. We have to have that faith that is powerful and strong. What type of faith? Even more than David when he's facing Goliath and he's just a teenager. They said maybe he was 17, maybe 16 years old. But he says, I come with the power of God. Our faith is being tested right now. It really is. But if you can persevere and allow that perseverance to reach its full length, you will become mature in faith. You will become complete in faith, not lacking anything. This time that we're in right now is a great time. It is. Let your faith be powerful and strong. Don't try to find reasons for the chaos. Don't try to find something that says, oh, it's okay that these things happened. No, we can't allow that. We have faith. We believe. We understand this history. Do not let Satan come into your thoughts. Do not let others who misunderstand, do not let the ignorant come in and say, oh, well, what about this and what about that? Well, don't you believe me? Why do you think this? Our hearts have to change. Instead of, let's just hold on tight. Let's just hold on tight until the end. It's more than that. We have to fly. We have to soar during this time. When everyone thinks that we're dead and everyone thinks that we're wrong, we have to soar. That's where faith comes in. Our faith is so powerful that no matter what the situation, circumstance, we still fly. And that's when people see there is something different about this history. Don't sit back, but let your faith be known by your actions. Don't let other people say, oh, that's a wrong thing to, it's too scary. It's not scary. As the message said, as seasons come and go, this winter will pass. And when this winter passes, the spring will come. And when the spring comes, all the things that God could not bless you with at that time in the winter, God will put all of them on you in the springtime. Guys, we're at the end of June. We have 6 months left in this year. Just 6 months. I can't even believe it's 6 months already. 6 months are over. This time will fly by. And we can't look back at these, at this year and say, I should have done this and I should have done that. This is a time where we will say, yeah, this is what real faith is, right? What is real faith? It's confidence in what we hope for. It's knowing this history, knowing what God has done for us, knowing the man and mission of this time, having that confidence and pushing through. Because this trial is not going to break us. This trial is going to give us perseverance that is going to make us more powerful than we were before. And those people that make it through this are going to make an incredible history after 2023. As King David said in Psalm 119:30, I have chosen the way of faithfulness and I have set my heart on your laws. And we have to choose faithfulness. We have to choose to be faithful. We have to choose to go forward. Like, yeah, it's tough, but I choose to be faithful. As it says in 2 Corinthians 5:7, we walk by faith and not by sight. We can't see the different things that are around us. We can't see what is true at this moment, but we walk by this faith. The world is going to look at us and say, look how bad this place is. But we don't walk by what we see. We walk by the faith that we have. God is bringing us into this history not because we're 100%, it's because it's faith. God welcomes us based on our faith because we're not 100%. So with this faith, God will change our hearts. And with this faith, we'll receive the joy of this salvation. And when we receive that joy, we can share that love we've experienced with all the others around us. So I really hope that all of us can gain something from today's Sermons in the Sky. And I hope that we can have that absolute faith and know that this is going to strengthen and complete and mature our faith. All right? Everyone, have an amazing and awesome Thursday. Hope you guys really enjoyed this. And we will see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when